I thought that was so cool that you did that. I want to be able to do that too.
Isn't it lovely the way that
it just organically grows itself? The act of putting flowers into the hands of other people hit something in my soul that I'm like, okay, part of me is meant to do this. It grew every year as I grew more and, would put out little free flower stands throughout the season because, as we know, you need to cut your dahlias on a regular basis so you get more and more blooms as you go. And then it was like, okay, well, what else can I grow to go with these dahlias? And, not only for myself, but to give these little bouquets away. And it's like, okay, let's see what else we can do.
Hey friend, welcome to the Growing Kindness Podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Kitchen, founder of the Growing Kindness Movement. This is a place where we grow together, learning to root our lives in kindness, connection, and community. If you've ever wished the world felt a little softer, a little more neighborly, or if you're craving stories that remind you that goodness still grows, you're in the right place. Together with our guests, we'll share stories of generosity and community, proof that even the smallest acts of kindness, from growing and giving cut flowers to everyday acts of care, can change lives and connect us in powerful ways. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. This season is made possible by Heirloom Roses, our Season 2 sponsor. We're deeply grateful for their generosity that helps carry the Growing Kindness mission forward and makes these stories possible. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so glad you're here with us today. Today's episode is really special. For the first time ever, I'm actually getting to record live in the studio with our guest, which is so fun. We have the privilege to be able to reach across time zones and geographic boundaries to be able to normally bring this podcast to you because we're able to record virtually. But today I get to be joined in person in the studio with none other than one of our lovely Washington State Growing Kindness ambassadors. And I'm so excited to welcome her here today. So I'm going to let her introduce herself. So will you tell us just a little bit more about who you are and where you're growing kindness?
I am Alicia Myers Leifheit. And I have Dragonfly Blooms, which is an urban flower farm in Everett, Washington. And I became a Growing Kindness ambassador in 2025 And
that's who we get to chat with today.
Yes.
Love it. All right, Alicia, your story with flowers, started long before you came to Growing Kindness. So can you kind of start at the beginning of that story? Like, when did flowers come to you, or when did you come to flowers?
Flowers came to me early. I have probably been gardening in one shape or form as long as I could walk. I grew up with my grandparents, and my grandpa and I had a routine where every Saturday morning we would go out to breakfast, just the two of us. As soon as growing his season hit, the next stop after breakfast was always the garden center. Grandpa was the one who always planted all the flowers, managed the garden. Grandma always had the vision and took credit for it because she was the garden club member.
But he made it happen.
But he made all of the ideas happen, at least while I was in the picture. But yeah, every year, I mean, it's like he planted, very traditional things. There were lots of impatiens. There were lots of marigolds. There were lots of geraniums. But then there were also great perennials in the garden. And this was Southern Ohio, so they're different than what we have here.
Yeah.
But probably the most memorable thing in my grandparents' garden, because I had never seen anything like it again until I came to Washington State, was that she had a tree peony.
Okay.
And no one else had one.
Was she like the talk of the garden club?
She was. And it was gorgeous. And it was nothing like the ones you see out here, because obviously the winters are much harsher there.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's where it all started. From working with my grandpa Stu all the way through high school. And then once I went off to college and got married, as soon as we had our first apartment, I had planters on the porch. As soon as we had our first house, I put in way too many gardens year one, but
I think that's so. Don't you feel like everybody does that?
Yeah.
I mean, almost always, unless you literally are so limited by space. I feel like all of us
go way overboard.
Bored.
Like we are, it's like when, I don't know, your eyes, what do we tell our kids when they're dishing up their plate? We're like, your eyes are bigger than your
belly.
stomach. Like our visions for our flower gardens are far bigger than our like time and capacity to manage them.
Always.
But we don't know that yet at the beginning. And quite honestly, if I'm being
honest
with myself, right? Like, do we actually ever really lose it? I think that's just the hope and the optimism of gardening, though, is you're always like every year, like, no, we'll be able to handle this much this year. But what a beautiful story to see how he inspired that and planted those seeds in you so little.
Yeah.
So from the time you can remember.
Yeah. No.
And the fact that you continued that through high school is really unique, because I feel like so often, when kids are on their journeys of becoming who they are, sometimes they go through those seasons where the things that were anchor points when they were little or were hobby points when they were younger kind of get left behind. But it wasn't for you. You held on to it all the way through.
No. I mean, and, my mom and I lived with my grandparents until I was 13. And then once mom and I moved out on our own and had our own house, then we had our own gardens. And I did a lot of the work in those gardens as well. I picked out a lot of the plants, did a lot of the planting, but there was always something special about going back and working with grandpa, because it was always something we just did.
Mm-hmm. Within the love of gardening, what do you think appealed to you the most about it then? Like, what did you find in it as a young girl and then as a teenager in your experience?
I think I have always been one that's had like a love of minutia. Like even to this day, I do macro garden photography, but it's seeing the things that no one else sees or notices. And somehow that's very grounding to me. To find the ladybug, to investigate, to learn why. Why is this doing this? How can I do this better? It's always been that sort of innate sense of curiosity.
So that was cultivated in the garden for you.
Yeah.
Once you launched on your own and started growing your own gardens, did gardening change for you, or is it still that same anchor point and like opportunity to explore and learn, or did it become something different?
It expanded, because once I became an adult, and especially once I was significantly in the corporate world, that's when the garden started to become sort of the retreat. And the point of, okay, this is where I can go and truly be present in the moment and allow the rest of the noise in the world to shut off. I'm one of these weird people that actually doesn't mind weeding.
Oh, you're not alone in that. If there's a weirdo club for it, I'm here for it. I feel like it's just therapeutic.
It's therapeutic.
Like it's instant gratification, because you're watching this like transformation happen before your eyes, sometimes a little slower than you'd like, but you get to watch, and it doesn't require a lot of thought. It almost is like this just mindful flow that you can get in with weeding that does somehow feel different to me too than other aspects of gardening. I don't know. I know people the same that like they passionately hate weeding, but to me, I mean, you got to do it. And then when you can, I guess that's if you can do it when it's younger and not like completely overwhelming and overtaking your life and your garden. But same, I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and with that, I think the more stressful life became, the more I wanted to add to the garden. And I think part of that was sort of a unknowing at the time way of self-care, because I knew it would allow me to shut off.
I love that. I think that so many of us find that place of rest and quiet and healing in the garden. And like, they're spaces that invite us into that. But like you said, it's almost like we don't even necessarily know it and name it. We just know that it's fulfilling that need in our hearts that we're not finding in the hustle and bustle of all the other parts of what's going on in our life. But yeah, that is just, it's just such a picture, I think, of everybody's gardening experience. At some point, they find that in the garden. So what I'm curious about is how those seeds planted from the time you were little and knowing that the garden was a place where you felt most yourself. The garden was a place where you could be curious, where you could rest, where you could find quiet. At what point did you find yourself sharing the flowers that you grew in your garden? Like, when did that become a part of your journey?
Growing to give really almost happened by accident the first time. And I had a girlfriend who wasn't much of a traditional gardener, because I had always been, I had always done lots of annuals. I had always done lots of perennials. 10 years ago, I had never grown a cutting flower.
Mm-hmm.
From there, she got me started on dahlias.
Yeah, it's like the gateway drug. And it's either that or sweet peas.
Yeah. And it went really poorly the first round, because here in the Pacific Northwest, everyone always says, oh, just leave them in the ground. They're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had beds that I had specifically soil developed for water retention, for vegetables and those type of things. I left them all in the ground.
Yeah.
And I lost 100% of my dahlias the first year.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I sort of went, nope, it's too much work. I'm not going to do it. And then we came back and she talked me into trying them a second go round. And I had 6 or 7 plants, but they weren't single tubers. She had given me, like quarter clumps.
Mm-hmm.
And it was time to pull, and we had more flowers than we knew what to do with that were still on. But she's like, no, we're pulling them now. I'm not going to be dividing in the rain. I'm not going to do it. We're pulling them by October 15th at the latest. But I'm like, they're all still in flower. What are we doing with all these flowers? And at that point, I only had 5 or 6, but she had 70 or 80.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, well, we're just going to compost them. I'm like, we are not composting these flowers. I was not going to let those flowers go in the compost. So I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? I just decided, I've been an active part of our Buy Nothing community locally here for
Mm-hmm.
a lot of years. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make little bouquets. I'm going to rubber band them. And I'm like, I don't have containers. I had no plan before like the day this actually happened. So I took a, like a storage tote, long rectangular one, taped it all into squares so they could hold the individual bouquets.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Rubber banded them, filled the thing with water, and put it out to my Buy Nothing community and said, free flowers, come and get them. And I had so many people that day. They were all gone within like 4 hours, and we probably had 75 bouquets.
Oh my goodness.
And they were all gone within like 4 hours as soon as I put it out. And everyone was like, I can't believe you're just giving these flowers away. And, there were so many stories that immediately came back. I was having the worst day and you completely changed my state. Thank you so much. And, it's like there were so many stories that started coming, and it just sort of started the wheels turning even then. And from there, then the next spring, it's like, okay, I've only got 5 or 6 plants, but as we know with dahlias, 5 or 6 plants, okay, I've got 45 tubers. I do not need 45 tubers of these same varieties. I want to go to the society sale and I want some new varieties. What am I going to do with these tubers? And I'm like, well, I'll just put them out and Buy Nothing and I'll give them away. That actually started what became a much bigger thing since then. But I gave those tubers away the first year, and a lot of those same people that I had given flowers to were the ones that came and got them because they said, I thought that was so cool that you did that. I want to be able to do that too.
Isn't it lovely the way that
it just organically grows itself? And the act of putting flowers into the hands of other people hit something in my soul that I'm like, okay, part of me is meant to do this. And it grew every year as I grew more and, would put out little free flower stands throughout the season because, as we know, you need to cut your dahlias on a regular basis so you get more and more blooms as you go. And then it was like, okay, well, what else can I grow to go with these dahlias? And, not only for myself, but to give these little bouquets away. And it's like, okay, let's see what else we can do. And it grew organically from that. And I got to the point 3 years ago and, I was growing 75, 80 plants myself and giving away lots of free flowers left and right. And about that, I had known about you guys and I'm like, I think this is something I'm really called to do on a greater level. I had been working the mission all along without officially being a member.
I think that happens so often, right?
And then I found Growing Kindness in this incredible group of people through the greenhouse community. And it was like, wow, okay, I can make this into something bigger than what I'm doing now. And we can even serve more people. Some of my Dahlia mentors that I had met through the Snohomish County Dahlia Society were doing farm tours, and I was out there and at one of their farms, and they said, well, when are you actually going to join us and like officially be a grower? Let's like sell. And that like hadn't even come through my mind. And I was like, okay, oh. And then it just like, it was this moment and it clicked. And it's like, I wasn't a business at this point. And I'm like, if I was a business, I could afford to give even more.
I think it's such
and
a
that was the
beautiful-
whole premise on how and why I did that. Created Dragonfly Blooms was to be able to sustain giving even more.
Yeah. And I think that there's so many different beautiful and sustainable and joyful models and ways that people do this. I think that, there's people that grow and it's their hobby and that's it. It's at that scale that it works for them and it keeps it joyful. And I think there's businesses that are, growing sustainable, profitable businesses that incorporate a giving component that's sustainable and that allows them to reach out in their community in beautiful, beautiful ways. And then there's this opportunity of like, maybe, your giving ends up eventually growing into a flower business. But I'd love to hear more about how those two work together for you now that that's the model that you're sustaining. Can you share more about that?
It's evolving.
As any growing thing is, right?
Yeah. But last year it allowed, by having the business, and this is the second year, 2026 is the second year that I've actually done tuber sales. So by deciding to sell tubers, it has allowed me to up my production and the numbers that I grow. And by happenstance, or I guess by planning, it then allows me to have more flowers to give during the season. I've got a roadside stand in my neighborhood, but really I'm not out there looking to sell to florists doing those other things because my goal is to have the flowers to put out into the community. And last year I did 2 events with our local food bank.
Amazing.
Specifically geared on their senior pickup days, because as you always talk about, they're often the people that are the most forgotten. And those were incredible experiences.
Can you tell us more about how that worked for you in setting that up and structuring it and like what those events look like?
It doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, and that's like the number one thing. When I went into the food bank, give the first one, I didn't know if I was going to have any help or if I was going to be doing it all myself. The senior days, they normally have somewhere between 60 to 75 pickups. So that's the number of bouquets we were looking at doing.
That makes me have a little lump in my throat. It's like no one got forgotten. Everybody got one.
Yeah. And actually, the day that we happened to be there in September, they had less pickups than normal. So all the volunteers that day got to take them home too.
Oh, perfect.
Which is extra special.
Yeah.
And then we were at, also there is a preschool at the church that has the food bank. And then we were able to take some into some of the teachers
very lovely.
As well. And then they took me into the classroom and then had me explain and do like a little elevator speech about why they're getting flowers and what we were doing. And that was really special too. And the kids are like, you just give people flowers? And I'm like, yes, I do. And they're like, that's cool. So it's like planting those seeds early too.
Yeah.
Which I love. But really those bouquets were very simple. And especially with that type of audience, with being seniors, we didn't want anything breakable. We just did soup can arrangements.
Yeah.
And they had 3 dahlias in them and some filler flower and then the bouquet tags. And it turned out to be myself and one of our other ambassadors, Lisa. And we put all of those together. The soup cans came, I put out a message to my Buy Nothing community. And
there you go. Man, Buy Nothing's been like a really good spot for you to build connections in your community, which I think is a great reminder to us all that so many of us have these free and accessible resources online, with these online community spaces.
And it's like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Mm-hmm. Can you collect cans for me for the next month and let me know when you've got them ready and I'll pick up. And now I did that. And then we did a Christmas give with the same group. And now I just have bags of cans randomly show up on my porch.
I love it. So you're like going to have a stockpile ready for your next big give.
I probably have 250, if not 300 suitcases in my garage right now.
Okay. So that actually is really helpful for me to consider because I know sometimes that can be a really limiting a factor in figuring out how to do. Like sometimes people have a ton of flowers, but not a ton of vessels to be able to give them in. So to reach out to your Buy Nothing community and just say, drop them off on my front porch. Or I have seen people do that with a similar kind of outreach to say, making a connection with a local business. Like if you maybe don't feel safe having people like have your address or whatever, to be able to say like, hey, local coffee shop, will you be we do a can drive for me and let me have a box in the front or whatever it might be to be able to collect them that way. So that's so cool. Yeah. So did you hear back from any of the recipients of the flowers? Because I feel like sometimes we send our flowers out into the world and you don't know exactly where they went or how they were received. You just know that feeling in your heart, that just joy of giving so freely. But sometimes we do hear back. Did you have that in that experience?
Well, the food bank welcomed me in. And I actually got to give flowers out in person.
Oh, okay. So this wasn't like they weren't going out like on a Meals on Wheels type situation.
No,
you got
this
to be
was
face to
face with the recipients.
Wow. So how was that experience?
It was phenomenal. Mm. And like so many of the stories, and for people that have been listening to your podcast, and part of the community, they know, especially our elders have stories and they have those connections of sweet peas and dahlias more than anything, it seems. But of so many of these people were like, oh, I remember when I could have a garden and I haven't had flowers in years. Mm. This is so special. Mm-hmm. What became even more special is when we went back to the same group at Christmas and they knew exactly who I was.
Oh, I love that.
And they remembered, like, before they ever came in, the flowers were inside and I had run out to the car for something. And there was somebody that I had given flowers to the first time and I recognized them. And they're like, oh, you're the flower lady. Do we get flowers today? Mm. So it's special and it's soul filling. And it's like giving to others, especially that are down on their luck and may need a little extra hope or just that little bit of kindness. Mm-hmm. There was one gal there last September and she pulled me aside and she said, do you have a minute? And I'm like, sure. Because it was just one of those moments where it's like, okay, universe, you're speaking to me. She needs somebody to just take a minute. Mm-hmm. And she's like, we found out last night that we were going to lose our house. And I came here this morning to get food because we couldn't afford any. And I really, I had no hope that anything was going right. And she's like, I can't explain it, but somehow getting this little bouquet has made me feel like there is goodness in the world still. And maybe it's okay to keep going.
Oh gosh. I have goosebumps and tears in my eyes because
it's what it's about.
It is so much.
It's what it's about.
We have no idea. I mean, I think obviously in an environment or, community space like a food bank, obviously we do have some idea. We do know that people are there because things have been hard, but we don't know how hard and we don't know what ways they've been hard. Just to show up and care. We have no idea how it's going to impact somebody. Well, one part of your story that I have loved getting to witness and unfold are the connections that you have made in your community through this very simple, I think it's so beautiful. You think of those like one little pebble drops and the ripples that go out from them. So you have reached out in generosity through your Buy Nothing community.
Yeah.
And it has unfolded in some really beautiful ways. And if
if our listener today has listened to previous podcasts, you may have even been making the connections and the dots between Miss Al and the darling young ladies who were on the podcast here just recently sharing their story. But I would love to hear from your experience, how that connection unfolded and what it's brought into your life.
Oh, these darling girls. The Hernandez family was a connection that I made through my local Buy Nothing group. And the first time I met them was shortly after they had moved up from Texas. And I was offering dahlia tubers that spring. And Michelle, the girl's mom, came and got some. And I have always made it a point that I don't just give tubers. I am here to help people learn to grow and succeed with their plants. And no matter how, it's like, that's another part that fills my soul for me, is helping people learn and understand.
Which is so full circle. As you shared your story about being the learner in the garden and like that curiosity, like what a full circle moment.
Yeah.
To be able to then share that.
So it started with Michelle asking questions and talking and getting to know not only her, but her family, and developing a friendship through that. And then this last winter, when I had put a call out to my Buy Nothing community, 1 for cans, 2 for additional greenery, for the holiday program, because I was able to get tons of wonderful things from our local tree lot, but I didn't have cedar, and I really wanted cedar because of the wonderful flowy aspect. So I had put that out, and I said, and if anyone would like to come learn and design, we're going to be doing this from, put a couple dates out there. And Michelle reached out and said, well, I want to come help you, but can I bring the girls? And I'm like, yeah. At that point, I had met her girls. I knew they're responsible. I knew they weren't going to chop their fingers off. They were old enough.
Right. Sometimes it can be dynamic with a group of kids.
But those girls are the absolute sweetest. And Seraphine, her oldest, Michelle reached out and said, she's decided she wants to crochet flowers to put in every bouquet you're doing. Is that okay? And I'm like, it's fine, but it's a lot of bouquets, Michelle.
How many were we talking at this point?
80.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
We were talking 80 for the holiday give. And she's like, okay, let me check in with her. And she's like, well, she's got 20 done. But and this was like 2 days before they were coming over to design.
Yeah.
And she says, she's going to get them done.
Oh my goodness. I guess I didn't fully grasp that part of her story. I mean, I knew it was a lot, but I didn't know she did them on such a tight timeline too.
She did 60, and they weren't real big. They were maybe like 2-inch little crocheted flowers.
Sure.
Absolutely adorable. And not only did they do that, then they wired them so that they could be put in the bouquets. And they got them all done. And then they came, and Michelle and her girls, I had some other volunteers as well. And it just sort of organically grows. And I find that people want, if you put out there what you're doing and share it, people are like, oh yeah, let's do that.
I think
and they want to help.
Totally. I could not agree with you more. I have found, it's funny because I'm discovering this both with the gardening aspect and giving flowers, but really I think it's so real to every part of our lives is when we can ask specifically for help, it opens all these doors and opportunities. Like people, we want to connect. We're wired to connect. And I think we're wired to help each other. And so, but sometimes we get so overwhelmed. Like we don't know where to start, or we don't know how to show up for other people or how to give. But when there's somebody that makes a specific ask, like, can you share cedar from your garden? Can you give me soup cans? Will you come and help arrange holiday cheer bouquets, on these dates? Sometimes the more specific we get with the help that we need, the more freeing it is for people, because then they don't feel like they have to, show up with a bunch of resources or know what to do, but just they get to be a part. And it's just like when someone invites you over for dinner, right? You get to their house and you're happy to help. Like there's something connecting and joyful about like, I can set the table or I can chop the lettuce or, whatever. And so when someone gives invites you into a task that's specific. It's a really joyful way to build community, which obviously you did, because since then, the Hernandez family has been closely connected with you, and you guys have done many things together, right?
Yeah. Those sweet, sweet girls, they cannot wait for like flowers to be in full tilt and go. And Michelle and I had a conversation the other day that was all about, okay, learning what they have that they can use. Mm-hmm. And I think that's sort of the surprising part, that so many people don't realize that it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be fancy to make an impact. Mm-hmm. You don't have to grow dahlias, although dahlias are really fun to grow.
I love it.
But, you just start looking at what you have. Hosta leaves work beautifully in bouquets. Mm-hmm. Do you have a shrub that you can trim? Do you have an evergreen tree that you can cut off of to make these
herb garden
or an herb garden
or things growing in the ditch beside your house?
I mean, there's so many things there. And, Michelle and I just had a conversation, and it was like, okay, I'm like, I'm just thinking around your house, and you can use this, 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 and this. Cause she was like, can I, get bouquets for me for this weekend? And I'm like, you don't need to. You've got everything you need. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh. And I'm like, yeah.
Sometimes we just need somebody else's eyes to see it for us, though, right?
Yeah. So, but her girls have really sort of taken off with the crochet side of things, which you talked about in their podcast with them. And, they cannot wait to do their next senior home visit, because they'll have flowers as well as crochet. Mm-hmm. So they're very, very excited. And when we did our tuber give this year, and it was the 6th year we've done a tuber give, and it turned out, it was just another one of those organic things. And I put out there that, hey, to my fellow growers, hey, I'm doing this. If anyone has anything they want to donate, this is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And this year when we did our tuber give, it was actually an event sort of geared off of how the event you did in April. And it was amazing, because I had 4 other farms that donated tubers. We put close to 500 tubers out in the world in kindness.
Mm-hmm. What was the response to the people who came? Like who came and picked up tubers and who are going to plant them and now share flowers in kindness? I'm so curious about that.
It was a little bit of everything. Yeah. There was a lot of shock and awe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're giving these away? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, because the world needs more kindness. The world needs more beauty, more than ever. Between economic times being hard and the world just being hard right now for so many people.
And all the things.
It's just like, no, we need that touch of softness. Mm-hmm. And to encourage people and give people the tools, whether they wouldn't have the money to do it or just have been scared to start or didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
And to be able to put that out into the world and then have, like growing kindness behind sort of everything and purposing behind, but having the greenhouse there for people to have ask questions and have resources and community behind people that are growing, but giving people ideas of, oh, I had never thought about taking flowers to my first responders, or, I would be scared to go to the nursing home. And sometimes you just have to do it. And it's okay. If that first bouquet, you just drop off at the front desk at the nursing home and say, I'd like your residents to have these this week.
But it's just like this beautiful, you're giving them dahlia tubers, but really you're sowing seeds of opportunity for kindness. Like the flowers are always just the catalyst. It's just the tool that we get to gather and hold, but really they're just the catalyst for carrying the kindness and connection into the communities. And so what a cool opportunity to get to plant these ideas and inspiration for people and have these conversations about how they could then, yes, you're giving them flowers, but more than that, you're not giving them flowers, you're giving them the opportunity to grow flowers,
right?
Which I think in and of itself, you talk about coming back full circle in this conversation, like what the garden was to you. Like I just love the thought of that is that when we give flowers, like the moment of interaction you had with that woman at the food bank, like it's this opportunity for care and connection and kindness And then when we gift something like a dahlia tuber or a seed packet or a bulb or whatever, we get to invite someone into the experience of gardening. And you and I both have and not just you and I both, I think probably anyone who's ever gardened understands that experience of what a place of, you get to give someone the gift of gardening. And gardening is this gift of care that extends so much farther than the length of the flowers in a vase. Like they get to have the gift of coffee cup in hand in the morning and going out in their garden maybe for the first time ever and noticing the insects, noticing the dewdrops on the leaves, like pulling the weeds, getting your hands in the dirt and your face on the sun. And I just think that isn't, there's so many layers to the joy and the goodness of being willing to give freely. But when we give things that enable people to plant a garden, like the experience that we're inviting them into, that feels really special and unique. And I love that you have just actively and generously reached out in your community and cultivated that. And I think there's, in an industry that's grown rapidly, that has, a tremendous amount of activity, the flower growing world is big. What I think is really cool about your story is the ways that you've brought the gift of gardening to your community, but then in the very same on the very same path that you've been also cultivating a sustainable business for yourself. What are the ways that you've seen that be mutually beneficial to each other, both like having a sustainable business and the generosity and giving that you're doing in your community?
I really think when I started the business, I didn't go into the business to make money. Mm-hmm. And my husband knew that going in.
Hey, I think we just have to be honest about what our outcomes and goals that we want and objectives are. Right?
I mean, because flower farming, one, is not for the faint of heart, mm-hmm. and it is not inexpensive, mm-hmm. especially if you really care about the earth like I do and mm-hmm. your insects and are growing sustainably and organically. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to it. But really, when I started the business, the goal was to give back to growing kindness and to break even. Mm-hmm. And because I really feel strongly in the mission.
Mm-hmm. Obviously.
And I really wanted to be able to not only work the mission, but to support the organization on a higher level, mm-hmm. which is why 10% of my tuber sales went back to growing kindness this mm-hmm. year. Putting myself out there as the person that is offering the service and not giving the tuber, I do free dividing classes to teach people. I'm giving these people tubers. I have to teach them how to store them and to divide them and all those things too. And I don't charge for those things. That's not something I'm looking for. But at the same point in time, because those people have gotten to know me, they become customers by default. Mm-hmm. And they know who I am. They know what is behind what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And once you start growing dahlias, they're sort of addicting.
Mm-hmm. Smiles and nods everyone ever who's ever grown them. Like, some girls have shoes, some girls have dahlias.
Yeah. No, I was just joking with a friend the other day. How many dahlia tubers could we buy for the price of a Louis Vuitton purse?
I mean, let's do the math. I'd like to.
Give me the tubers any day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, I love that they're not mutually exclusive. They're actually mutually inclusive, that generosity and sustainability and growth and success as a business can go absolutely hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone was listening today and maybe has never actually grown dahlias, I'm sure as they've listened, they have realized that dahlias are certainly your area of specialty. If they've never grown dahlias, what would be your advice to someone who is brand new to growing dahlias? What would be the most helpful thing that you could give them that you wished you'd been given when you were first starting out?
Find your local society, Dahlia Society, and go to the meetings.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Those people, because every region in the country has things that are very specific. And I could give you one snippet of advice, but it's going to be very Pacific Northwest based. And if you're growing in Texas, if you're growing in Georgia, if you're growing in Maine, it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And while the same premises still are there, it's that nuance that will allow you to be extremely successful. So I would say go find your local society.
Awesome. And then it's just like you touched on before, there's so much joy in learning together. I think learning together in and of itself is its own form of like creating community. Like that's something we've got to witness and watch unfold within the greenhouse, which is our like online community, which is, free to anyone who wants to be a part of the team. It's just the ways that like learning together brings connection, and it brings, I think because there's maybe something a little vulnerable when we're learning something new. So it's so awesome to get to be able to not only benefit from the wisdom and the actual skill and technique, that you can learn in those organizations, but also just to doing it alongside of other people in your actual physical community and get to be networked with them that way is just really awesome.
And I'll tell you, these old timers, they have all kinds of like back to basic tricks that like put a screw top on top of your water bottle and drill some holes through it and use it to water your seedlings. I'm like, hello, who needs, the fancy,
Mm-hmm.
$60 sprinkler when you can use a squirt bottle? Create a squirt bottle. I mean, it's
yes.
like, yeah.
Yes. And I think it's like we need each other. I mean, that's truly what it's all about, is we need each other. And I think one of the really special opportunities that exists in Dahlia societies is there are people coming up into, the world of growing dahlias who need that counsel and support, but those people need community and they need to have their voices be heard and they need opportunities to teach. And so it's just so mutually beneficial. So
yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I hope that anyone listening today is convinced to jump on to the buy nothing. Was it buy? Some of them are buy, sell, swap, right? Some of the pages are called buy, sell, swap, and some of them are called buy nothing.
The buy nothing community. And if you go,
that's where it's at, is the buy nothing community on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, and they're hyper local.
Okay.
And there's stuff out there that has sort of been, stretched and all that. But the core of the original buy nothing mission is that goods are exchanged freely
mm-hmm.
with no further expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So you put it out there, you're not going to, somebody's not going to take something for free and go sell it. They're going to take what they need and share within their local community.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the core premise of the original Buy Nothing mission.
So it's definitely a resource that any of us could be using to be able to outreach in our community. I think sometimes people feel at a loss of knowing, like, where do I start building these connections, or how do I share my flowers? And that's just a really beautiful resource that we all have right within our community to be able to tap into. I think, Alicia, you have reminded us all today just that kindness is so accessible to all of us, and it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And we really can just start where we are. I love all the parts of your story that have reminded us of that today. And that those small seeds really have the power to make a big impact, from the seeds that your grandpa planted for you in your life and taking you into the garden to those that now you're spreading in your community. So on that thought that there's no such thing as a small act of kindness, because they all have the power to ripple out far beyond any distance that we could ever imagine. What is an act of kindness that someone shared with you once that you still carry in your heart today?
Like you said, oftentimes they're the smallest things. And this is just one that's on the top of my head right now, because it's just the moments that come out of the blue where someone just takes a minute and thinks about you.
Mm-hmm.
St. Patrick's Day, I get a text that says, go check your doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this little quarter size 4-leaf crocheted clover that appeared on my doorstep. And after everything we've talked about, I bet you know who that came from.
I know exactly who it came from.
And it was just an out of the blue moment. And it was just, I had been having a really hard day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just that moment of the Hernandez girls, if you haven't put the connection together, Seraphine in particular, just taking the minute and saying, I need to make one of these and drop off to Miss L.
Mm. I see you. I remember you, right?
And I think a lot of times as busy moms, going, doing for everyone else, sometimes we don't feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
And those little moments of feeling seen just really are special.
Thank you so much for listening to the Growing Kindness podcast. If today's episode encouraged you, there are a few simple ways to keep growing kindness with us. First, you can join the team. When you become a Growing Kindness gardener, you link arms with like-minded, like-hearted people from all around the world who believe that small acts of kindness really do make a big difference. To learn more or join the team, visit growingkindnessproject.org/gardener. Thanks to the generosity of our donors, membership is free. Another way to get involved is to become a donor. The Growing Kindness movement and this, our podcast, are made possible by the generosity of our donors, kind-hearted people who believe, just like you, kindness matters. If you'd like to support the movement, visit growingkindnessproject.org/donate to make a gift and keep kindness blooming. And finally, if this episode touched your heart, would you share it with a friend? It's one of the simplest ways to spread kindness today. I'm so grateful you're here. Until next time, keep growing kindness, one bloom at a time. This podcast is made possible in part by Her Connection Hub, a female-focused co-working space in Bellingham, Washington, who generously provides the studio space where these conversations are recorded.